graduated from English, many of us went to colleges in different directions. Not many people know, but I was kind of excited about UCLA. I went out to junior college in California because I wanted to play at UCLA. So I went out to Compton Junior College. I got hurt that first semester, came home, and decided not to go back. Went to Graham Junior College, became the Junior College All-Star there, and looked at colleges from junior college and Merrimack and other colleges. And so there was a coach that was really interested in me coming to Merrimack. I went to Merrimack. What a wake-up call that was. I mean, they were putting notes with in under my door. They put my tires on flat. And so it was such a wake-up call. When I came home for Thanksgiving, I told my parents I'm not going back because of racism. Even though I was playing basketball, the racism there was intolerable. And, my parents said, fine. They said, what you going to do now? We were down the boys club, back and forth. Peter Parham said to me, why don't you talk to Jimmy Moore? He's at Brandeis. And so, talked to Jimmy Moore. You remember Jimmy Moore, right? Went out to Brandeis. He introduced me to Coach Branham, the basketball coach who was working with the Celtics at the time. Branham said, we want you here. And so I ended up at Brandeis playing basketball. And when you really think about it, the journey was one that, and we never know what our next step is going to be sometimes. We just take it based on faith.
Sure.
And I played basketball there. My senior year was supposed to be my big breakout season. And we had a protest at Brandeis. And I had to make a choice. Whether I was going to play basketball that season, or whether I was going to participate in this building takeover. I decided, because of the significance of the protest and the building takeover for a program we call Transitional Year Program, that we would fight for TYP. And so we fought for TYP. They still have the program today. In fact, it's called the Miniard Craft Transitional Year Program. Miniard Craft endowed it with over $1 million. And because of our protest, because I gave up playing basketball to fight for that program, young black and brown students now have opportunity to go to Brandeis. And that's how it happened.
Wow. So how did pursuing a law degree, how did that fit into the package for you?
Well, I always wanted to be a lawyer.
You always wanted to be?
Whether I was going to the NBA or not, I would be an NBA lawyer. But I always wanted to be a lawyer. As kids, Perry Mason was a big thing. That was my favorite show was Perry Mason. And I always wanted to be a lawyer, so I went to Brandeis. After Brandeis, I really wanted to pursue the NBA. Some of us went to different states to try out. And I came back to Boston and ended up at Suffolk University Law School. And had a great experience there. Practiced law, great early private practice career. Then I left to go to divinity school at Howard University. And so, yeah, it's been a great journey. When you think about who we were, when we were, and look at where we are now, we've come a long way.
This past Sunday, I was preaching, and I'm only preaching one Sunday a month these days. And I was talking to the congregation, and I said, I know a lot of you may not believe this, but when I was 16, 17, 18, I had a bad reputation in the city. I was drinking too much. I had to drink and be high or intoxicated to sit at Brighton High School because I was lost. I was just lost. And I said, people wouldn't even let me into the parties in Roxbury because I was so drunk. I would just start fights and just do stupid things. And I said, but Reverend Haynes sent me to a Christian school in Lenox, Massachusetts, and those 4 years at Lenox completely turned my life around. And so I'm hearing you going to Brandeis and then pursuing a law degree, deciding to pursue a law degree, and then you ended up working for the federal government. How was that door open, working with HUD?
Well, at Howard University Divinity School, Washington is the seat of the federal government. And so after divinity school, I've always been involved in politics.
Right, you were doing a lot, yeah.
I went to work for John Ray. He was a city councilor as his staff director. Ron Brown was chair of the DNC. Ron is the one that asked me to go work for John Ray to try and get him ready to run for mayor. While working for John Ray, one of the Congresswomen from Michigan, asked me if I would come to Capitol Hill to be her chief of staff.
Mm-hmm.
My mother got sick. She had breast cancer. And I had to make a choice. I had to leave Washington. So I had to leave Capitol Hill. And because of the relationship with Capitol Hill and the executive branch, always back and forth, I always knew I wanted to go to HUD to help folks with housing.
Mm-hmm.
And Dwight Robertson was deputy secretary, and he asked me if I wanted to go to New England to be the regional counsel while I was coming home. And so it was a perfect fit. So I came back to Boston as HUD's regional counsel at Pleasant Hill, not anticipating becoming pastor at all. I was just coming home to take care of my mother,
Mm-hmm.
who was struggling with breast cancer, and brought my family back, knowing that Boston had some of the better schools. So it was, for me, coming home was an opportunity to really begin to give back.
Mm-hmm.
And using HUD as a vehicle, I was able to do a lot of different housing opportunities, the demo district program, 18,000 units that we rebuilt in the city of Boston. It's interesting, folks didn't realize that it was HUD. Most of the housing that was being rebuilt, government housing, whether it was Orchard Park, whether it was Geneva, whether it was Academy Home, was done by the federal government. We were doing that at HUD.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't know that. Maybe developers knew it. People, city hall, city government, state government, they knew, but the average person didn't know HUD's involvement. I mean, what was that? Just bad messaging, or what? Why?
I just think the federal government doesn't try and get out front. Like Section 8, all of the Section 8s in the state. When you think about Boston Housing Authority, those are Section 8 that come from the federal government. They come from HUD.
Mm-hmm.
The operation for many of the housing authorities, their budget is based on what HUD gives them. And so much of the federal dollars coming to the cities, folks are not aware that it's federal money.
Wow. And so I needed you to make the connection between serving as an attorney and then becoming the pastor of Pleasant Hill Baptist Church. Now, 28 years. When I pulled this out last night, it was 21 years when this article about you. But 28 years, and you had having the anniversary celebration. So, who's going to be there? Did it pass, or was
No,
it?
it's this Sunday, 28 pastoral anniversary. Bishop Borders is
I saw that.
preaching at 4 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And some morning service coming to worship with us, and other churches and other ministers. Of course, we'll have a morning service. By the way, Bruce, I want you to come by the church Saturday because we're having a fish fry. In fact, I gotta go this afternoon. I gotta go catch some fish.
You gotta go. No, wait a minute. You're the lobster guy. I mean, I love lobster, and I'm watching you with the lobster traps and all of that, and I'm saying, how does he have time to even follow up on something like that?
Well, in fact, I'm not doing lobsters this summer, but I did those lobsters. It was part of what happens is it was during COVID, and one of the things that I found out is that as you age, you have to come up with different initiatives to keep your brain active. believe it or not, one of them was lobstering because it's so complicated. And how you get the lobsters, how you put the trap in, when you take the trap out. The traps go in at a certain time. You gotta look at the tide. You gotta pull them out at a certain time based on the tide. So sometimes you're getting up early in the morning. But I stopped lobstering because one of the things that I found, Bruce, lobster contributes to plaque building up on your brain.
Oh.
So folks that are eating a lot of lobster, they should be careful because, that Alzheimer's, its plaque builds up on your brain slows down. And so I said, you know what? No more lobstering for me, I'll just fish. And so we're doing a fish fry Saturday.
So where do you go to fish?
I'm going down Martha's Vineyard today. And I'll probably stay tomorrow, I'll fish tomorrow, and I'll come back hopefully with a lot of porgies, because a lot of people want fried porgies. And so I'll get some porgies. And there'll be other fish, but we're going to have the celebration is really Saturday at the fish fry. So come on by. It's not all going to be fried, some will be broiled, but we're going to have a good time.
My aunt used to, when I was 14, 15, 16, just still lost, my aunt would pick me up on a Friday and take me down to the Cape, and she and her husband would go fishing, and that's what I did before I became a Christian and started going to church. I would be on the Cape learning how to fish, and I really appreciated the fact that she taught that to me and spent that time with me. And then once I connected with the church, that was all over. My life changed. So the church that you're in now, Pleasant Hill Baptist Church, I'm going to over exaggerate. Is it a family church?
No, it's a community church.
Okay, so talk to me about that.
Well, my grandfather built Pleasant Hill.
Okay, when you say built.
Founded. First he founded.
Okay.
And then he raised the money. The community helped a lot to build the church. They had,
wow.
When they were digging the hole to begin the foundation for the church, he had a shovel out on the sidewalk. And as people got off the bus, they came and they dug some of the foundation. And until they were tired. Now, they were coming from work, and they would dig in the hole, community folks. And they would dig a little bit, and they would go on home, pass the shovel to the next person. The community at that point really was community. Everyone knew everyone. I mean, look, it's funny that you mentioned about you being a bad boy, because we looked at you as a good boy. We were the bad boys. No, we were the bad boys. And we looked at you as, when you did find your call as a singing preacher. I'm not sure if you realize how the perception was, but it was that you were a singing preacher. But we were always involved in the community. In fact, that's how I became involved in this National Women's Soccer League, and the Boston Unity Soccer Partners is listening to the initial presentations that they gave a year and a half ago about the community benefits that the Boston Unity Soccer Partners were bringing to the community. When I heard about the benefits that this soccer team was bringing to White Stadium, it really focused me on, and Bruce, if you remember how we walked the streets when the young gang were really at it, when they really killed each other, how we walked, I mean, me, you, Bishop Dickerson, we walked the streets and talked to those young folks. And, we didn't consider ourselves a Boston Miracle. We just knew that we had to get into the streets to stop these murders. And the interesting thing, I talked to Commissioner Cox last month. We had an event, and he thanked me for the work that we did in the 90s and early 2000s in the street with these young folks, because we were in the streets with them.
And I was listening to a story on the news 2 days ago, and they were talking about the homicide rate, the shootings, significantly down. And a lot, unless you write the story, or I write the story, or Pastor Dickerson's write the story, people aren't going to see the connection between what was happening with 125 people homicides in our city during the 80s or 90s. They're not going to see the connection to what's happening today.
Yeah, that's right. And when you think about it, and I look at the young folks that we worked with that were doing the shootings, that were going to prison for guns, that are out now, that we really sold into, that are working now, that have families now, that some of them are buying homes now. And when you look at the work that we did, in my opinion, we paved the way for folks like the National Women's Soccer League to say, we want to go into White Stadium, right in Dorchester, right in Roxbury, right in the middle of the black community. Because when you think about the way homicides are down, you think about the environment that we work to create so that folks could come in. And I know folks talk about gentrification and how the community is being gentrified, and it is. But Bruce, if you think about the way we grew up, we didn't have these kind of investments. They were small investments that went into the community. In fact, in my opinion, this is the biggest investment in our community that I've seen in my lifetime that will benefit the community, the businesses, jobs for young folks, a contract for young folks.
Why so much opposition? Because I was reading here, it says, story April 3rd, 2024, judge rules in favor of White Stadium renovation. So this thing has all gone to court, and the court said, no, we're going to let you move forward. Why the opposition?
I think, first of all, you have to look at who's opposing it.
Okay.
And I think when you look at Emerald Necklace, and you look at the composition of Emerald Necklace, and you look for us, Bruce, if you remember, Sly and the Family Stone. I mean, look, I look at you now, and I look at your gray hair, but I remember when you had that big afro.
Yes, sir.
And I think about Sly and the Family Stone at Franklin Park. Over 10,000 people in the park.
The concerts, yeah.
No problems. No one complained about traffic. No one complained about 10,000 folks in the park. And I think with Emerald Necklace, they think it's an overload for the community. But we remember when there were thousands of folks, and we had fun. We were just happy to be in the park, and we were happy to see Sly and the Family Stone. We didn't have any money, right? Emma Lewis Playhouse in the park. We didn't have any money, but the park was full of folks. No one was complaining. And I think now that the community is being gentrified, I think folks feel as though they have a hold, that they own Franklin Park, and they don't own it, it's everyone's. And the way I look at it with the soccer team coming is that we're sharing Franklin Park. We had opposition when the Haitian migrants came to the Cass Center. We stood up and said, no, we've got to share with them. Same thing with Franklin Park. The soccer team is not coming to take over the park. They're going to invest $50 million to redo White Stadium, but we're sharing with them, and we're sharing with them.
And the city's putting money into this too. I'm seeing I thought I saw $80 million is being used.
It's going to be $100 million, 50 from the city, 50 from the Boston University Soccer Partners. But when you look at the investment in the community, and you look at our community now, the reason why I'm fighting for the soccer team to come to Franklin Park, to come to White Stadium, because I believe and I know there's going to be some renewal with businesses, contracts. If they're putting $50 million into the stadium, and they've committed to 50% of those contracts going to local women and minority businesses, we have to benefit. And at this point in the city of Boston, we need to take advantage of these kind of investments so that the young folks that are coming up behind us will have greater opportunities than they have today. And I'm convinced I would love to see young folks walking from Cedar Street, walking from Elm Hill, walking from Humboldt over to the soccer stadium to work in the stadium.
Hmm.
I'm going to be excited to see black and brown concession stands in White Stadium and Franklin Park. And so, for me, the benefits that we need, because as gentrification takes place in the community, we know that our black businesses are not frequented by many of the gentrifiers.
Mm-hmm.
But we do know that where benefits come in that manifest in our black businesses, they hire black businesses, hire black folks. Black folks that are hired pour right back into the community.
Right, right. So who are the elected officials that are supporting this, that are out in front?
Well, I've been talking, I know Chris Worrell,
Okay.
100% behind
Okay,
this.
good.
Councilwoman Anderson
Okay.
is a supporter. Councilmember Miranda is a supporter.
Senator Miranda.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that Senate seat all too well. Senator Liz Miranda is a supporter. Councilmember Montana from JP is a supporter. In fact, Brian Worrell and I, now Brian's not a 100% supporter right now, but Brian and I talked last week, and Brian does like the idea of the investments going into the community. His concern, and we talked about it last week, was to make sure that the youth in the city of Boston, and that's a big piece of this White Stadium renewal, that our young folks will have a National Soccer League standard stadium to not just run the track and not just to play soccer in, but to use for the Boston Public Schools. I just think we're anticipating a stadium, world-class stadium for our young folks in the city of Boston.
Well, they're saying that the soccer league is not going to be using the stadium for the entire year. They're going to use it for the season. But when that season is up, the other young folk will have access to it. I don't know about this, how that schedule is going to work, but...
Well, one of the things that people should to know, and I want to make clear, that the Boston Public Schools will continue to own the stadium.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They're just leasing it to the soccer team.
Okay.
And so when the soccer team will use it 10% of the time during the year.
Yes.
The students in the Boston Public Schools will divvy up that time. They'll control that time. The other piece of it is there's a piece where the community will be able to use the stadium. And I'm not sure how the Boston Public Schools is going to arrange for community residents to use it. But I want to be able to walk across the street. I've lived in Silver Street for years. My grandfather and grandmother, first African American family to live on Silver Street. And to buy that house, they had to fight to buy that house. But we've always, Bruce, we've always used Franklin Park. And it's always been open for anyone that wants to enjoy Franklin Park, to walk over to that park and enjoy, whether it's animals. I remember those polar bears years ago, but it's always been a place that was open. It's never been a place where we've said, or the community said, you can't come here.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been an open stadium, open park, open golf course. One of the jewels of the state of Massachusetts is right in the middle of the community. So if there's a world-class soccer team coming to help redo the stadium, that's going to give our young folks, and I have a young teenager, this is her second year playing soccer. She's so excited about soccer. She got hurt last year, but she's in high school now. And I can imagine some of the young women from the community one day being able to go up to the park to watch them play on a professional soccer team right in their own backyard.
Mm-hmm. Well, some of the one of the complaints I heard, and I was thinking about this because it's happening all around the church now, is the parking. So, where will people park when they're coming for these games? That was the major thing that I heard.
And that's a major thing that we hear with everything. But they won't use the parking around the park. They're gonna have parking outside of the city of Boston, and they'll have shuttle buses that will bring the
Oh, they're gonna have shuttle buses.
yeah, they'll have shuttle buses that will bring all of the fans to White Stadium from outside of the city. And in the transportation plan, they've had these meetings with the community where they identified where the parking will be outside of the city that will shuttle folks into the park. The fans, they'll encourage folks to take the trains that, you know, you can walk to White Stadium from Green Street and from some of the other subway stations. So there really won't be any parking for the stadium in the vicinity of the park.
So, do you think that, for example, the court case where the judge said this thing is going to go forward, is that finished? Has the community appealed that decision?
So here's the status of the court case from what I know. In fact, you know, when you read that opinion, the judge wrote a great opinion to pave the way for the stadium to move forward. But the Emerald Necklace group went in for a restraining order and preliminary injunction. And the judge ruled against them. And one of the key elements that the judge ruled against them, when you go in for a restraining order or preliminary injunction, one of the elements that has to be satisfied is whether there's a success of likelihood on the merits. In other words, whether this case is a case where you'll be successful on the merits of the entire trial. And the judge ruled that they probably would not be successful on the merits of the case. The other thing is whether there's imminent harm, and the judge ruled that there wasn't. And so when you look at the denial of the motion for restraining order or preliminary injunction, it pretty much does away with the case. And you know, one who's practiced law for 40 years, if I was the city or if I was the soccer team, I would have gone right back in for motion for summary judgment. Motion for summary judgment means that there's no facts that are in dispute that would have to be fought at trial. And as a result of summary judgment, looking at the facts and basing it on what the judge already said, I would assume that summary judgment would be granted for the defendants, the city of Boston and the soccer team. So I think it's moving forward. I think that cases, you know, if they're still paying their lawyers, I mean, I think it's fine that they can continue to pay for that legal case, but it's a case, from my opinion, after 40 years of practicing law, that they're not going to win.
So, be careful how you answer this, because I don't want to get people upset with you. But when I look at the demographics around the White Stadium at this present time, it's not a whole lot of folk that are living over there who look like you and I. And sometimes residents who are not looking like you and I, they don't want to see a whole lot of folk that look like you and I attracted to their areas, where their new homes are. Who or what was the leading organization that was opposing the soccer team from coming in and renovating the White Stadium? Do you know that? Was it
the Emerald Necklace organization?
It was a what?
The Emerald Necklace organization.
Okay.
They're involved in different parks around the city of Boston, and when you think about the composition of who the Emerald Necklace really are, it's not folks that look like us.
Okay.
That run and invest in Emerald Necklace. And so when you look at White City, when you look at Franklin Park, it's really interesting, because if you look at one side of it, the JP side, you probably looking at majority of white folks. But many of them are supporting the soccer team. I think there's a small minority that are really opposing the soccer team. And I think when you look at the other side of the park, you look at black and brown side, who will benefit, in my opinion, in a great way. And let me just go back, Bruce, to what I said about the soccer team in the beginning, because what attracted me was when I heard one of their presentations where they talked about 50% of the contracts being committed going to black and brown businesses or women and minority businesses. And so they're almost finished with the design.
Did you help to negotiate that?
No.
Oh,
No, I wish I had.
that's significant.
That's significant. But even more significant is the commitment. And one of the roles that I'm trying to play as a result of a long-term Boston resident is to hold them accountable for the commitment to that 50% contracts. And I think they've been successful with the design phase because 52% of the contracts, the monies that have been used for the design phase, 52% have gone to local businesses or women and minority contractors. So they've lived up to their commitment with phase one. There are two more phases. You know, of course, the major phase is the construction phase, and we look forward to construction companies in our community being part of that contracting process. You know, where the faith leaders are 100% in this. They've been meeting with the team. They're working on a database. They're putting together a database of contractors. So as these contracts come up, all they'll have to do is push a button to bring up those contractors that have the experience in that field and that they can apply for those contracts.
That's good.
So
That's
it's
good.
not something that we're just talking about. We're really working hard to make sure that our businesses are involved in the millions of dollars that are coming into the community.
Well, so what can we do as a radio station, as a TV station? What can we do to follow this and help with the goodwill of seeing that this thing happens and becomes a success?
Yeah, I think you should have some of the owners on.
Okay.
Bring the owners. I've been working with the owners. Bring Jennifer Epstein on. Her husband Bill is involved. In fact, Bill is one of the key architects of how the contracts are going to roll out.
Okay.
Him and some of the other folks in his office. Stephanie Connington is one of the owners, Anna Palmer. And you know Linda Whitfield is involved. She's an investor in this, and she's heavily involved in this. Bring Linda on and let Linda talk about it, because I think the more the community hears from the owners and the investors, the more comfortable they'll be with the soccer team coming to Roxbury and Dorchester community.
So what I'll do is ask you to send me, to email me the names and telephone numbers for these individuals, and we'll bring them on one at a time and give them an opportunity. We can do Zoom if we needed to do Zoom, but I think there's a whole lot that we can do to help get the message out that this thing is going to happen. We might as well jump on this train while it's going down the track, because if you miss it, you're going to be rubbing your hands saying, why did I not do that?
And that's what happens many times in our community. Folks will come into the community, set up, build, construct, and when we look, everything is done, and we haven't benefited from it at all. I think with this National Women Soccer League coming to the community, the Boston Unity Soccer Partners coming to the community, I think we're on the front end of it, and I think we have an opportunity to build relationships and to build businesses. You know, look, Brother Randy and I are working on this too. You know, he's in Grove Hall.
Yeah.
He's opening up a renewal, and I can't remember the name of the initiative Brother Randy is opening in Grove Hall, but they've been constructing and contracting, and they've been doing Grove Hall. When you ride by, you'll see the name of that recovery clinic that they're putting right in Grove Hall, and they're doing that with their own contractors. And so when you think about Grove Hall, when you think about Blue Hill Lab, when you think the businesses around Franklin Park, you think about 10,000 folks coming into the community. We want to make sure that those businesses benefit from all the folks that come into the community for those soccer games. Even though it's only 10% of the time, the millions of dollars that come into the community, we want to be part of those dollars.
We have a few minutes left. I have another broadcast coming up in a second. So how did you actually get involved in this? Did they come to you? Did you go to them? Well, how did it happen?
Oh, well...
Why did they choose Reverend Miniard Culpepper?
So this is really how it happened. So the National Women's Soccer League were looking for opportunities to put a soccer team in Boston.
Okay.
They identified, and Jennifer Epstein, her father is one of the owners of the Celtics.
Yes, I read that, yeah.
Richard Taylor works close. He's in Nubian Square.
Yes, I saw that.
Jennifer's husband, Bill, has an office in Nubian Square. So the National Soccer League comes to them. They're looking for a place to either build a stadium or put the stadium. Richard Taylor, an African-American man, Richard Taylor, brother, good friend of mine, Richard says to them, look at White Stadium. Not much is going on in White Stadium. Why don't you check out White Stadium?
Yeah.
A brother, people don't realize that it was a brother that actually bought the National Women's Soccer League and Boston Unity Soccer Partners to Franklin Park. I'm so glad you asked that, Bruce, because people don't realize. They just think these white folks just ran into the community. No, it was a brother, Richard Taylor, one of the greatest developers. If you remember, Richard built on Highland Park. Richard was the first developer to put those townhomes up there years ago. Richard Taylor is the one that said, look at Franklin Park. Richard Taylor is the one that introduced them to the mayor. Look, let's go talk to the mayor about this. So when you look at how this happened, black and brown people have been involved in this right from the beginning. It was Richard Taylor that called and said, hey, Miniard, I want you to work with the soccer team. Right out of clear blue sky. But we talk all the time. We're always involved. When I ran for the Senate, Richard Taylor was right there with me. And so for years, Richard Taylor and I have always worked on little projects. This was just a major project. And I do want to make sure folks credit Richard for all he's doing down Dudley Station or Nubian Station, because he's developing down there and he's trying to put a major tech center down there where concerts can come. So, I give Richard Taylor, I credit Richard for being the one that identified White Stadium as a place where this soccer team could bring benefits to the community.
Let me ask you one other question, not focused on this, because I want to make a comment. When you ran for senator, did anything come out of that was positive for you? You didn't win, but people knew that you ran. Your name was out there not just as a person who worked for the federal government, pastor, but now you ran for office and you had the people who voted for you. What positive thing came out of that?
That was one of the most positive. I mean, people saw that I lost, but for me it was a victory. Bruce, I did more ministry knocking on doors as a political candidate that I have done in my 28 years at Pleasant Hill Baptist Church.
Wow.
I have not knocked on doors as pastor, because the interesting thing is, Bruce, go try knock on doors and tell people you're a pastor and see how they open the doors.
Right.
They probably won't.
Right.
But when you tell them you're running for office, people want to talk to you. And then when people saw that it was me, look, people were asking me to pray. I was praying for folks while I was knocking on doors running for the state senate. I was making referrals to folks while I was running for the state senate, folks that were having struggles. I would go to some of the housing developments, and folks would say, look, I got mold in my apartment, and the management won't do anything about it. And so when you look at, for me, the ministry that went into running for office was a great opportunity to get into homes that I wouldn't have gotten to as a pastor. And so from that perspective, it was a great victory. I didn't lose anything. And the other thing that for me was a victory is I got to see how the political system works from inside. And, you know, one of the things that happens is that we really have to break the stronghold so that real development can come to our community. And I ran because I wanted to bring resources to our community. And I thank God that Senator Miranda and I have a good relationship. She always says, whatever you need, give me a call. She's working with us on the soccer team. And I don't feel bad because I lost. I just think it was a great opportunity for me to run for that state senate seat. Royal Boland held, Bill Owens held, Diane Wilkerson held. It was a great opportunity to really knock on doors and talk to folks about good things that happen and can happen in that second Senate district.
Don't laugh when I tell you this. So I was contemplating running for the governor's council because there are no black folk.
There's no black folks.
And they are part of the helping to confirm judges and people that are going to be set free, let loose from prison. And I said, where should a black person be? And I said, the governor's council.
The governor's council.
So I went and talked to my family about it. Had a conversation with my family. I won't tell you who, but one of my family members said, once you get your papers, your nomination papers signed, there'll be a moving truck on the outside of the outside of the house, moving all the furniture out. You can go ahead and run, but you're gonna be by yourself. So I said, okay. Then an elected official came to me and said, would you run for the Boston City Council? I told them the same story. My family said, I'll be there by myself. But so even if you lose an election, there's so much you learn. Right? And people even look at you differently. They look at you differently, saying, you got to watch out for him because he understands how the game is played. Once you run for office, you're telling people, I understand how this game is played.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I appreciate you.
And it's a tough game, Bruce. Don't get me wrong. I remember you got to remember Michael Haynes was a state rep.
Yeah.
And he just decided not to run. I remember when he was even contemplating running for the state senate. And he decided not to do it. But I think it keeps the political process healthy. I think the ideas and the positions that you advocate for, I still advocate for the same things I talked about while I was running. I haven't stopped one bit. And so for folks that are looking to run for office, don't think the only way you can make change is from the political process, because we make big change. And if you remember, when we were walking the streets, it was just faith leaders walking the streets. There were some politicals, but the interaction with those gang kids, to talk to those gang kids, support for those gang kids, going to court for those kids, advocating for, came from us. And I think we made a big difference in the city of Boston and the streets. And I'm still working with those young folks. They won't let you go.
We have some good history. I want to follow this story about the soccer team coming in, and when have they broken any ground yet?
No, they're not at that point yet, but they are moving forward. And again, I recommend you have the owners in. You'll enjoy the owners because you'll see the commitment that the owners already have, like Jennifer Epstein, right? They own the Beehive in the South End now. That's a restaurant that I hear is popular and they've got good food. I've never been to the Beehive. I'm going to the Beehive. But once you have the owners on, you'll see that It's not the traditional owners that have been investing in our community. You know, we had a faith leaders luncheon, and one of the owners told a story about her grandfather and God. She started talking about God at the luncheon. And so when we think about new investments in our community, it's not as if we're not vetting them. It's not as if we're not looking at who's coming into the community, because there have been entities coming into the community that we have stood up and said, no, not here. And I think the investments that we have made with our lives, Bruce, you've invested your life in the city of Boston. And so you're certainly not going to watch anyone just come in and tear it down. We're looking for folks that are coming in to help build up our community. And that's what I think the soccer team will help do in the Black and brown community.
Let me say this to you. As you and I talked a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about our lives and our health-related concerns. And I said to you that I go between my house and the church and my house. I might go to Star Market. But health-wise, I'm not able to do some of the things that I used to do. I'm still in the healing process. And it's not that I don't want to be involved. I just have to seriously pull back if I'm going to regain my health. So anything that I can do with the microphones and the radio station to help you with this, we'll do. We'll do some PSAs. We'll help get the community behind this even all the more.
You'll be hearing from Gail Jackson.
Okay.
I know Gail is listening, and Gail is going to be on that phone with you as soon as we get off about how you can help. Bruce, really let me give you your propers. Reverend Bruce Wall, pastor of the Global Ministries Church here on Washington Street, Boston, Praise Radio and TV. And the work that you've done here, the work that you've allowed folks to come through here to talk to the community, has just been really a blessing. And we continue to pray for your health. You know, I've had my health issues, but we come back every time. And the Lord is not through with us yet. And as we build community, the prayer is that we build a better place here in Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan than we found when Jeep and Reverend Haynes and Royal Bolin and Shirley Owen Hicks and Doris Bunty and all of them fought for us to have a place where we could grow and nurture and develop. We want to do the same thing for our young folks.
Well, I'm going to ask you in just a few moments to pray out, but when you were talking about Reverend Haynes getting ready to run for the state senate, I was working with him at the State House, and I got a call from Jeep Jones. Jeep was out of town, and I answered the phone, and he said, "There's a job opening at the Boston Juvenile Court. Are you interested?" I didn't know anything. I was not an attorney. Didn't know anything about the Boston Juvenile Court. I could have came in through another door, not the door to work, but the door to be locked up. And I went in, talked to Judge Poitras, and I got the job. And I was there for 18 years when the Lord called me out of there to come to this church and be its pastor. So Reverend Haynes decided that he was not going to run for the state senate because some of the key people that he was going to ask to help got other opportunities, and he decided, let me just focus on the church. So new doors are opening for all of us, and I'm glad that in your retirement, you're still walking through those doors that are opening for you. So could you pray for us?
Sure. Lord, we thank you for this morning. We thank you for allowing us to come together to discuss community benefits for our young folks and for our people, for our businesses. I pray, Lord, that you bless this, your pastor. Bless, Lord, this owner, this founder, this visionary of Boston Praise Radio and TV. Oh God, give him that Jabez experience, that you would expand his territory, that he would reach even more, that he would reach even further across the seas, that he would touch even more, and that he would continue to be the voice for this community of truth, love, peace, humility, and victory. Bless Reverend Wall and his wife and his family, this Praise Radio TV. Bless his church. Bless them. In Jesus' name we pray.
Name.
Amen. 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 God bless you, Reverend Wall, and I look forward to continuing. We've been working together for how long? too long to remember.
we can't even quantify or calculate it. So I appreciate you coming on, and we'll do it again. And again, anytime that you have an update that you feel you need to share, you don't even have to come in. You can pick up the phone and call, and we can take it over the air. So,
Absolutely.
but again, I want the station to be relevant to the community, even more so. And we're picking up some unique broadcasters are coming on with us, and we're trying to turn this segment, the early morning segment. We're going to go to total news and see what we can do with
Great.
that. And on Sundays, we'll do more of our gospel music. Okay.
Great. No, thank you so much.
Thank you.